Well, hey, everybody. Chris Jacobson here. Thanks for tuning in to Live in the Vision. This is specifically a sport related episode brought to you by the South Dakota Triathlete. And I have with me a very special guest and a really, really interesting interview ahead because Sage Canaday, not only being a professional runner, is also a high school teammate of mine. And we grew up running together. And he's got a very, very interesting story to tell. But I'm super excited to get to catch up with Sage after all these years. Thanks for being on the show, Sage.
Oh, honored to be on here. Yeah, great to see you again, Chris.
Thank you so much. So I wanted to start into our background because my viewers, and I imagine yours maybe not, don't know the backstory or the beginning to your running back in Newberg, Oregon. So well, we were high school teammates. So tell us a little bit about your memories and things from high school cross country.
Yeah, so you're the same age as my older brother. You're actually 2 years. You're 2 years ahead of me, you guys, and I always looked up to you going into high school. We had a pretty good program. We were running with the big boys in the state of Oregon, the largest school division against all the top high school teams coming out of Portland and Bend and those hotspot areas. And it was you were the top guy. You were top dog, Chris Jacobson. You were a junior when I was a freshman, and you were the top 10. I think you were top 10 at state a couple of times in track in like the 1500 mile. You were very close to our school record, I remember, already as a junior. And so when I joined the team, I was really intimidated because you and Tyler Davis and Brian and my brother were all juniors, and you guys are super fast. So I was just trying to hold my own and kind of just hold on to you guys in workouts. I was pretty far behind you. You were still way ahead of me. So really looked up to you, and it made me a lot faster as a freshman joining that competitive team because you were leading us, team captain.
I think you're being awfully humble because I remember some of your middle school times. You may not know this. The first time I saw you race was when I was a freshman. You were a seventh grader running for, was it still Springbrook or was it Mountain View?
They called it Mountain View.
Mountain View. Okay.
Name, yeah.
So I watched you run a 4:47 on the track, my photographic memory. And I just thought, man, that is fast for a seventh grader. You were probably 12 or 13 at the time. So, you ran very fast and very competitively at a young age, and obviously helped a ton when you got to high school because we were able to take our team to state for the first time in 26 years. I pulled up some of my mom had saved a bunch of our newspaper clippings and things from high school. I'll have to send those to you, and if I can, I'm going to put them in the post-production because there's some pretty cool photos of us 20 plus years ago. But it was a lot of fun running back then. And I guess I didn't realize it at the time, how talented you were going to become. And so tell us a little bit about your progression through high school and then going on to run for Cornell.
Yeah. So actually you had gone off to run in college because you were one of the top guys in the state running like low 15-minute 5Ks back in cross country, I remember. And actually one of the best memories was when you and I went 1-2 at our conference meet. You won the district title of the Pac-9 conference. And then I happened to finish second that year. So we like swept that. But yeah, seeing like you go off to run in college at the Division I level was really inspiring to me. Being, 2 years ahead of me, I went on a recruiting trip. I remember, checked out you were my host on a college recruiting trip. So that was really nice. And I ultimately went to Cornell because I really wanted to be an engineer, and they had a really good engineering program. My older brother was also going to the East Coast for college, so I didn't feel like I was totally alone, but it was a good experience. I ended up not being an engineer. I switched majors like 5 times, but the running experience at Cornell, running Division I, you're given, as you know, you're given all the opportunities to excel as an athlete, and it's so competitive because there's all these top high school guys that turn into top college guys. And so it's really humbling, but I think that really helped my career and kind of shaped what might be realistic to do after college. And what I found is as I got older, I kept moving up in distance. So in high school, you're running 5K cross country or the mile in track or the 3K. And then in college, you get to move up to like 5K, 10K in track. And for me, that was a better fit running a 10K because I didn't have the leg speed that someone like you had, super fast miler, 5K. And then I ended up running marathons actually in college too. So I was lucky. My coach let me do that, and I was able to qualify for the Olympic trials while I was still in college.
That is awesome. So I ended up not having all that much speed as much as what the college guys do. If you're not a 4 minute miler, you're just not gonna make it at that distance. So I kind of distanced up as well. Ended up being a 3,000 meter steeplechaser. But talk to us a little bit about that specifically. Moving up to the D1 level, kind of seeing where you shake out, and then what led you to going up in distance, and I guess how did you make that discovery?
Yeah, it was, I mean, you're running with all these guys just on your own team. And then you go to these big cross country meets where there's dozens of other teams from all across the country. And you realize like, wow, it's going to be really hard to qualify for nationals, to try to be like all American or ranked like top 25, top 30 in the country. Cause our team didn't even make it to nationals in cross country, but I was lucky enough to be able to get myself there as an individual. But my college coach, Robert Rojo Johnson, he actually co-founded the website letsrun.com. Interesting guy, but he was really flexible in my training. And I told him I wanted to try to do a marathon in college, which usually a college coach would not let you do, because they're like, no, 5K on the track, right, you're running for the team. But I was able to do it in between, like over Christmas break. I ran my first marathon at Houston, and I just missed the trials. Back then the standard was 2:22, and I ran 2:22:20. So I missed it by like 20 seconds, and I was really frustrated. And so I said, can I try again after track season in June? And so he's like, yeah, you could do it in between track and cross country season over your summer break. So I went to Grandma's Marathon in June of, what was that, 2007. It's a long time ago, and got it, but it was 17 seconds to spare. I ran 2:21 on a hot day. So making the trials in the marathon opened up a lot of doors for me to run post-collegiately in like a marathon focus group, because my track times weren't as impressive. And then also eventually moving up even beyond the marathon distance, which we could get into later. But yeah, it just seemed like the longer the distance, the better. And if it was off trail and hilly, that was also better for me too.
Very cool. Very cool. I sometimes think about, I don't have any regrets with kind of the way life has unfolded for me, but besides you and a couple of other teammates I've had that have gone on to impressive feats. I roomed with a guy in college who went on to win worlds in the duathlon and become a professional triathlete. And so I sometimes think, what would it have been like if I'd have just kept going and seen how far, my ability could have taken me. It's fun. And it was really fun to watch you continue to compete at a very high level, through college and then post-collegiate. For me, the journey went from being very competitive to then starting a family, working a career, starting a business. And now, after all these years, kind of getting back into it. And it's been really fun for me, I guess, to reconnect to that competitive side, because you're used to, so many years of running where you're trying to win, you're trying to improve yourself, you're trying to be as good as you can, to then not have that in your life and return to it. It's been a rewarding thing. Any comments you would have on the length of your career, kind of season to season?
Yeah. I mean, I'm 37 now, and I've basically went pro or signed my first contract right out of college in 2009 is when I graduated, just with an undergraduate degree. I know you went on to further your education, and that's really impressive. So my career has been really long, and I've been really fortunate because I still wasn't All-American in college. I wasn't like a top blue chip recruit. I was kind of like just barely hanging on, even at the marathon group I was running in at Hanson's Brooks in Michigan. We had guys that made the Olympics. We had my teammate Desi Linden was second at Boston that year. I was on the team, and then she ended up winning Boston and making the Olympics a couple times. So it's really humbling to be like behind all these amazing runners that actually make the Olympics, or like you said, seeing guys make world championships and triathlon. But I think your route gives you a good perspective, because you're taking a little bit of a break from the competitive scene. You're working in a different industry. You've got family life to balance. I think that's probably a lot more relatable to a lot of people, but it also kind of gives you a natural break mentally and physically, even in your 20s or 30s, where you're like, you could kind of reset, and then the competitive drive comes back. And it's really never too late to try to improve your fitness and health and get back into sport and to have big goals. Even, as I get closer to that master's age, as I get closer to 40, it's like, okay, well, you're in a new age category, and there's always new goals to chase. So it's inspiring for me to see you getting back into competitive endurance athletics and doing all the things you do with your family and career.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I want to pivot a little bit with this next question, because you have not only done these running feats, but you've also documented them really well. So by your estimation, how important has social media been, for creating your brand, engaging fans, documenting the process of your running?
Oh, it's been really important. And I kind of just got lucky with the timing, just different platforms coming out over the years. It's constantly changing. And you think of it in terms of like your own branding or your own marketing, trying to attract sponsors, because otherwise it's hard to make money with just your legs. The prize money is not always huge. You're not always in getting on the podium or making a lot of prize money. So it's better to work with brands or partnerships through usually running shoes, like my title sponsor, Hoka, but other brands, maybe in nutrition or things even outside of the traditional fitness sports industry. And with the different social media platforms, my big one has been YouTube over the years. And I just kind of got lucky with that because I like making funny videos. I started filming some running videos even in college when YouTube was a lot smaller. And over the years, as new platforms come out, like Instagram or TikTok, even, I get on them right away, and I try to, always be active on social media. It's a good way to interact with the community and meet new people, but it's also good to build that traction and relationships with brands that are going to help support you probably financially. And so that's been a huge advantage to me because, if you're not always running super well, it's always good to say, well, I provide value, hopefully, to my sponsors or brands just by being active online. It's kind of an extension of their marketing arm or their marketing team. And you're helping represent these other companies. So it's been huge, and it's something I really enjoy actually too.
That's really cool. Yeah, you can tell you enjoy making your content, and we enjoy consuming it. So that's really awesome. So I've got a few questions that I wanted to run through, just sort of fun stuff from your career spanning all these years. 15. What would you say has been your favorite race? Your favorite race you can remember?
Oh, I'd say it's different when I ran road marathons versus now I do a lot of the ultra marathons and trail mountain races. My favorite road marathon, well, one of my best performances probably wasn't my personal best time. I ran my personal best time way back in 2011, but in 2015, it was my second time back at the Boston Marathon. And I had my first time at Boston, didn't go very well. I wasn't prepared for the hills. I didn't pace myself well. I didn't think I could run very well on a net downhill course. Boston doesn't really feel net downhill, but it rolls a lot. And I happened to get 16th place at the Boston Marathon in 2015, and I executed my pace strategy the most ideal I've ever done in all the 15 road marathons I've done. So I was really proud of that race, and it was a really fun experience to be able to actually be passing people in the last 10K of a marathon. And I still hurt a lot. But to do well, to place top 20 at a marathon majors like Boston was really rewarding for me. And that was definitely my favorite road experience. Ultra mountain running, just being able to travel in Europe and run mountain races in like the Swiss Alps has been really rewarding. And making some podiums there and doing well that's probably my favorite thing, is to be able to travel to Europe and do some exotic to me mountain races, because the Swiss Alps are not like the Rockies at all.
Right. I bet that was beautiful.
Yeah.
So what workout would you say you wish you did more of, and which one would you wish you'd done less of?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think now, as I have more perspective and as I've gotten older, I guess I wish I focused more on just the little things, like stretching a little bit before I run or after I run mainly. And then doing like more core work over the years. So just like strengthening stuff. So not necessarily maybe a specific running workout, because that's always been changing over the years, but just paying attention to those little things like your hydration and flexibility and working on muscle imbalances as they crop up, because I've gotten some injuries now as I've gotten older and run a lot of 100-mile weeks over the last decade and a half. But I was like, man, my hip flexors are always tight. I always need to be stretching those. You could know it's hard to be too strong in like your lower abdominal muscles, and the hip flexors and even your glute muscles. All those core muscles are just so key and so important for a distance runner, especially. I think I need to focus on that still more now. But yeah, the core strength has definitely been a huge thing to focus on.
I can echo that, being 38. I was invincible in my 20s, but now things hurt a heck of a lot more. So I have to spend extra special time and could definitely be doing a better job than I am. So, what would you say has been the greatest challenge you've had over the years with respect to the running?
Yeah. So I say my greatest challenge, things are going really well through my late 20s, and early 30s until about 3 years ago. I suffered a major health setback. I got a bilateral pulmonary embolism. So I had blood clots in both of my lungs, which could have been fatal. And it's something that's really unexpected for someone in their mid 30s who exercises a lot and eats. I wouldn't say my diet's super healthy, but it's not horrible. So I suffered from that. They misdiagnosed it as pneumonia for about a month. And so I had trouble breathing, and I couldn't run at all when I was sick with that. And I had to get eventually rushed to the ER, and I had to spend the night in the hospital. Pretty serious condition because it puts a lot of strain on your heart. And recovering from that has been a process over the last couple of years. I still have some concerns and health tests I need to figure out, but it did a number on my lungs for sure, and it's kind of hurt my breathing. There's been scar tissue and other things they're still trying to find out. But the other struggle with that, and this is documented in a film actually on YouTube called Starting Over, was that our apartment house in Boulder, we have just a small apartment in Boulder, Colorado, burned down in a fire a couple months later. So we ended up losing all our belongings in a fire. And so, I had all these medical bills, and then we're fighting with insurance companies on our fire. It's difficult with the HOA and all that, but just having to move and relocate again and losing all our personal items, like the sentimental items, like some of my race medals and like that Boston Marathon bib actually was kind of the hardest thing really. So I'd say that those two things all in a row for me personally in the last couple of years has been definitely the biggest struggle, and it's still a process to try to get my life back.
Yeah, that's like a greatest challenge 1-2 punch, and I think it's so impressive that you're still at it. You're still running, and you haven't let it slow you down. So that's a testament to your resilience.
Oh, thanks.
What would you say is your greatest strength as a runner, and maybe one of your weaknesses?
Yeah, my strength is definitely running up hills. So climbing any little hill. Yeah. And I didn't discover this till after college, really. Like in cross country, when you're running on those golf courses and there's little hills up and down, I'm like, why does everyone go so fast downhill? But I could catch them again on the uphill. And then after college, after I did some hilly road marathons like Boston and New York, I always noticed I was better at relative to the competition going up grades. And when it kicked up to even steeper grades, like 10, 12% grade uphills, which are really steep for a road, I found that I won the US Mountain Running Championship in 2012 going on in this all uphill race. And so that's definitely been my strength, especially long climbs, like long prolonged climbs. And then the longer distances always help with that. My weakness is the downhills. So it's kind of like this trade-off where I think I have really good form and efficiency going up hills, but then going downhill, I'm like getting passed by everyone. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. And I think you could train both. You could definitely get better at your up hills if that's your weakness, or vice versa. But there's also kind of a natural tendency where, oh, this guy is a climber, or this guy is really good at downhills. Or in trail running, you find now it's technical trails. The trails could be full of rocks and roots, and that could be someone could be really good at that, versus if it's a smooth trail or a smooth downhill on a road, someone could have, better leg speed and be better at that. And I'm sure you've probably found that with triathlon, doing the different disciplines, people get ahead on the swim, and then you have a good transition, and then you're really good on the bike, and then you pass a bunch of people on the run. So it's, there's always trade-offs like that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You think that's because it was hilly around Sheridan where you grew up? You think, or do you think it's more your build or whatever that makes you better at hill running?
It's hard to separate the two out. I have lived in very hilly environments. Even when we ran in Newburgh, some of those road runs we did out in the countryside, we were kind of on the edge of the Willamette Valley wine belt. So there were a lot of like vineyards and hills, especially out in like Dundee. I remember doing some runs with you up towards Dundee, actually, on those hilly roads, like on the edge of town. But yeah, I grew up in the forest, out in the countryside with just a bunch of hills running on dirt trails. And then actually the biggest influence was probably when I went to college. I was in upstate New York, Ithaca, New York. And if anyone's ever been there, it's super hilly. also super cold, but there's a lot of gorges and waterfalls and like rolling hills. And we actually trained on, most of our training was on single track. I know you ran a lot in the Portland area over the years too, and just running up in the hills like in Portland, Oregon, you get in some good hills. So I think definitely that background probably did help with my climbing ability for sure.
Okay. Maybe a little lighter question. What's your favorite pair of shoes to train in, and why?
Well, I'm sponsored by Hoka, so I only wear Hokas. I've been sponsored by other shoe companies over the years, like Brooks and Scott. But the Hoka shoes, I really like their trail shoe, the Zinal trail shoe, because it's lightweight. It's like 8 ounces, I think, in the men's, around a men's 9. So it's relatively lightweight. It has decent traction for a lot of different trail scenarios. And I actually run on the pavement or the treadmill. I wear it a lot too, because it's still a good shoe for the tarmac or some, basically any surface. So I really like that. Hoka has some really thick, overly cushioned shoes. People would say they're kind of like the maximalist brand, but they also make some really lightweight shoes like that shoe, or their carbon fiber road shoe, the Rocket X. They even make track spikes actually for kids running track and cross country. And they do sponsor a lot of road marathon runners, ultra marathon runners, triathletes. So there's a lot of different options in the brand, but I do like the lighter weight, more flexible trail shoes from them.
Yeah, I feel like they've really blown up as a brand since when you and I were starting out. It was very much a Nike dominated distance running shoe. So maybe this next question will be interesting. What is your kind of weirdest experience during a workout?
Oh, I ran into a mountain lion once when I was training outside of Boulder, Colorado. Not very far from town, actually, just up in the hills. Some really popular trails outside of Boulder, Colorado, just up in the hills, in the mountains. I came around a corner and there was another guy walking a dog down the trail, and he spotted it first, but we saw it jump out from these rocks, look at us, and then it ran away. But it was pretty scary to see, because you hear about people seeing mountain lions, you see the footprints, you see sometimes some mangled deer, which is a little scary because it's big. Like that was the first thing I noticed, was how big of a cat it was, especially with the tail. Like I was just thinking, like, this thing's like 7 feet long. It probably wasn't really that big, but it looked like it, and it was kind of scary. Because I've run into bear and moose and other wildlife, but mountain lions are probably the ones that scare me. Well, moose actually scare me the most, but mountain lions, the potential for them to attack would be devastating. So it was a little scary, but it ran away. It ran away from us. I picked up a rock just in case, but that was interesting.
I bet you picked up some adrenaline too. You're light as a feather after that.
Definitely. Yeah.
That's funny. What's a favorite or your go-to pre-race meal?
Pasta for the night before dinner. The night before, I like to have pasta, maybe a salad, some light veggies, not too much fiber, but just kind of top off the carb stores. And then for breakfast, I usually just have like some toast with a little peanut butter and jam on it or something, some coffee, orange juice.
Nice. Yep. That's pretty standard for me as well. Who's the most important person, would you say, in your success in your career and doing running for so long?
I mean, my partner, my girlfriend now, Sandy, we own a coaching business together, and she's been training and running with me for a decade now. Has been really influential. And then definitely my parents, because they've always been super supportive, just of any sports my brother and I and my sister wanted to do over the years. And even when I first got into running, my dad especially was like all in, taking us to all the track meets and cross country meets. And they didn't think it was a silly pipe dream for me to keep running after college. So definitely my parents too.
Very cool. Very cool. I can attest to that, having met them both. They're very nice people. And I bet that's really rewarding for you and Sandy to just kind of be doing the journey together in business and that it's fitness related. It's something you guys can do together.
Yeah. No, it's been a lot of fun.
Very cool. All right. We're getting to the end of our questions here. What is next for you, Sage? What's coming up on your calendar?
Yeah. So, I'd still like to get in a road marathon eventually. I haven't signed up for anything, but I have signed up for some mountain races all over the world. There's some like marathon 40K types of mountain races I'm signed up for a big one in Chamonix, France in August. That's actually an 80-mile race called TDS.
Wow.
So it's part of the UTMB series, but beautiful mountains. It'll be a tough journey because it's got like 20,000 feet of climbing over 80 miles in the Swiss Alps, and starts at midnight. So that's going to be a big focus. Hopefully, I still have to get some clearance with some of my medical checks and make sure my health's in order, but do want to ramp up training for that.
Wow. That just sounds really intense. People are sometimes impressed by triathlon and Ironman, but I'm impressed by 80 miles. That's a lot. That is a lot. I may end up wanting to do it someday just to show myself that I can, but I'm really impressed by that.
Yeah, a lot of Ironman athletes do it, so
yeah,
it's good training for both.
I'll have to pick your brain for training tips. One thing you reminded me of that I think is interesting is how important do you think it is that we find like a niche, like a unique part of our discipline? Because it seems like when road marathon was good but not great, you kind of pivoted into mountain running and other things. Can you talk a little bit about how that was a benefit?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good break mentally and physically to do what you like. And I was always interested with being out on the trails in nature. I still love road marathon running, but for my career to keep being competitive, moving up in distance, doing the longer stuff, and being in like a specialty sport kind of allows you to specialize and capitalize on your strengths. Like I said, my strength is climbing, and I found that I was even better when I was off trail climbing up mountains. So finding that was kind of just a process of trial and error. But I'd say just do what you love, do what you're passionate about. But it definitely helps sometimes to find events that really cater to your strengths and that you enjoy. And that for me, making podiums definitely helped with the sponsorship too.
Sure. That is awesome. Well, hey, Sage, I want to thank you again so much for coming on the show, bringing so much value. Where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm across social media. Most of my like my Instagram handle, Twitter is under my real name, Sage Canaday. And then on YouTube, I have a channel called Vo2max Productions. And then the coaching website that my girlfriend and I run is called Higher Running. So higherrunning.com. So thanks.
Higher Running. All right, everybody. I can't endorse this guy enough. So please go check out his social media and higherrunning.com. Thanks so much, Sage. I really appreciate you coming on. It was great to talk with you.
Yeah, great catching up. Good luck with your training. Thanks.
All right. Take care.